12. It's a really good, thank you, Krista, thank you so much. That's it, really good chapter, really fun, you know, you got all kinds of different dynamics, angles there in Revelation chapter 12. So that was Revelation chapter 12, and we're going to pause real fast. I'm just going to ask you guys, if you guys don't know how to know for sure you can get to heaven, this is everything I'm telling you about here in this book of Revelation, it's just my opinion. Your challenge is to receive the word with all readiness and to search the scriptures daily to find out whether these things are so. That's your challenge. Don't believe me. Test all things. Hold fast to that which is good. Yeah, Grandma, what is up? So, that is something that we need to really allow ourselves to really just understand. Don't believe anybody. Don't believe me. Don't believe your pastor. Don't believe anybody. You dive in for it for yourself. Receive the word with all readiness and search the scriptures daily to find out whether these things are so. But the most important thing is always going to be the most important thing, and that is how to know for sure you can get to heaven. There's only one way, and that is by recognizing that you are a sinner. Once you do that, then you're doing well, because now you're looking for a Savior. That's where Jesus comes in. You need to recognize and believe and put your faith in Jesus. And you need to recognize that he is God's son, that he led a sinless life, that he died on the cross for your sins and for my sins, and that he was buried and he rose again on the third day. And the Bible says, for whosoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. That is the most important thing. So we can disagree on some of these secondary issues, but that's the primary, and that's what I'll always bring it back to. I try to say that after every chapter, just in case you're new here. But if you are new here and you're looking for a verse-by-verse Bible study, I would encourage you to check us out. We got a YouTube link up here, and Amber just pinned it right here. It's ITZ_sheesh. If you want to go subscribe over there, I would appreciate it, just because, I don't have any other social medias, and so I upload all these studies up there if you want to go check them out. Again, we've done Revelation, Daniel, Ruth, Hebrews, James, John, Acts, Romans, all the Pauline epistles, Isaiah, Matthew, Zechariah, 1 Peter, 2 Peter, and now we're going through Revelation again. So I would encourage you to check us out or get involved in some kind of Bible study. That's how you grow. All right, so let's go ahead and get on into Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13. So here is where we're going to unpack some things, but in order to, we'll read Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, and then we will go check out Daniel chapter 7 because of how good it is. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, it says, Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Okay, so you have this really interesting picture. You got a beast rising up out of the sea. He has 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns. So what is going on here? So let's go to Daniel chapter 7. Turned right to it. Daniel chapter 7. You forgot John. Daniel chapter 7. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. Yeah, John. Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 verse 1. Let's go read Daniel chapter 7, verse 1. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 1, this chapter right here is vital for you to understand as far as really being able to, plug in the puzzle pieces where they need to go. But in Daniel chapter 7, verse 1, it says, In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. Okay, so now you have this picture. There is a picture of 4 beasts that are coming up out of the sea. Now, what's so important about this is to understand that Daniel is assuming you know the dream from Daniel chapter 2. Remember the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had where he saw the idol or the image, and there was like the head of gold, silver, bronze, iron mixed with clay, that whole thing in Daniel chapter 2. Well, Daniel is assuming that you understand that already. So if you understand that already, then you're doing well. But here, Daniel chapter 7, we're going to learn about these four beasts, and these four beasts are basically attached to the dream and in the interpretation from Daniel chapter 2, which was Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So in Daniel chapter 7, verse 3, it says, "And four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other." Now, what's important to understand here is that this sea is directly connected to Gentiles. And that's important. That's an important thing to understand. Why is that important? Because in Luke chapter 21, Jesus talks of something that is called the times of the Gentiles. That is a phrase from Jesus himself. He says this is going to be trampled until the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled. So there's something in the period of time that we are in that Jesus, God Almighty, referred to as a period of time that is called the times of the Gentiles. And so the times of the Gentiles, when did it begin? It began when Babylon took over. Because remember when before Daniel was taken captivity, like they lived in Jerusalem. But then but Nebuchadnezzar went to Jerusalem and destroyed it and then took all those people back to Babylon with him. Nebuchadnezzar started the clock for the times of the Gentiles. So that's where it began. It is still ongoing. And it's going to stop, or the last Gentile leader, in my opinion, is going to be the Antichrist. I believe the Antichrist is going to be Gentile, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because these four great beasts, they come out of the sea, as what it says in Daniel chapter 7, verse 3. These four great beasts come out of the sea. So the times of the Gentiles is closely associated with the four beasts, and the four beasts come out of the sea. The sea is like a crowd of people. And so you have the sea being connected to the times of the Gentiles, these great beasts being associated with the times of the Gentiles. So it's all very Gentile-y, Gentilian. What? But it's just really remarkable. But in Daniel chapter 7, verse 3, it says, "And four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other." So we'll pause there real fast. And so go back to Revelation chapter 13, and we'll look at it real quick, and then we'll go back to Daniel 7. But in Revelation chapter 13, it says, "Then I, John, stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea." Now, what he's describing here is this beast system, but what he'll go on to tell you about is that the person who's in charge of this beast system is going to get a mortal wound. And so we understand that this beast is a Gentile system that has just popped up, and now all of a sudden the person who's in charge of that Gentile system is most likely a Gentile because it came out of the sea of Gentiles. And so that's just, I could be wrong. Some people think he's Jewish and they have their verses and ideas and whatever. I'm just giving you mine. Not a big deal. It's literally not a big deal. But in Daniel chapter 7, verse 3, going back to the book of Daniel, in Daniel chapter, the Gentilians, in Daniel chapter 7, verse 3, it says, "And four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other." Now let's go to Daniel chapter 7, verse 4. It says, "The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it." This right here in Daniel chapter 7, verse 4 is describing the first empire. Remember the four empires that we talked about, and I kept doing this? You had Babylonian Empire, you had the Medo-Persian Empire, you had the Greek Empire, and then you had the Roman Empire. Well, this lion is represented as the Babylonians. So that's the first empire. And then we go down to verse 5, Daniel 7, verse 5, and it says, "And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear, it raised up on one side, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh." So this second one is going to be embodying the Medo-Persian Empire. And the reason why it had 3 ribs in its mouth is because many people believe that those were the 3 nations that the Medo-Persian Empire actually defeated in order to become a superpower back then. And those 3 nations that they defeated was Babylon, Lydia, and Egypt. And so that is the history of the Medo-Persian Empire. So that's very fascinating. So that's an idea for you. But then in Daniel chapter 7, verse 6, It says, and after this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now here, this leopard is going to be talking about the Third Empire. You know, Babylon, Medo-Persian Empire. The Third Empire was the Greek Empire. So this leopard is closely associated with Alexander the Great. He was swift. This dude was quick. Everywhere he went, he was just devouring, destroying everything, right? But you have these 4 wings and these 4 heads. So what are the 4 wings and what are the 4 heads? The 4 wings represent the 4 kingdoms, because after Alexander the Great died, he split his kingdom into 4 empires. And so he gave it to the 4 empires, or the reason why it was 4 empires and not 5, or 4 and not 3, the reason why it was 4 is because he had 4 generals. And the 4 generals divided Alexander the Great's empire, and they each took a part. So the 4 heads were the 4 generals, and the 4 wings were the 4 kingdoms that the 4 generals were in charge of. So that's what that's alluding to. But then we get to Daniel chapter 7, verse 7, and it says, and after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So here, we're getting into this weird place where now we're going to be talking about 10 horns. Like, what is that? Like, you're seeing a beast and it's got 10 horns. What are we even reading about? Well, what's interesting to notice about this verse right here is what we're going to be talking about here is Daniel is not going to want to know about the other beasts. He's not going to ask about the first beast. He's not going to ask about the second beast or the third beast. He's going to want to know about this beast right here. This beast was different. Something was so unique about it that Daniel was like, I want to know about that. And so this is why it's interesting, because what you see here in this beast is that there is 0 animal characteristics here, as far as like it's not likened to like a koala bear, or like, you know, like a sloth or like a platypus or something like that. It doesn't tell you. It just says it's just a beast. And so when I say 0 characteristics, I mean he's got teeth and stuff like that. I'm just saying Daniel didn't say it looked like an animal. It just like this thing was something different. And so that's definitely something to be paying attention to. This one was much more fierce than all the other ones. And so he's going to want to know about this beast. But this beast had 10 horns. And so what's good to know about this 4th beast is that this 4th beast, just as we move forward a little bit, thank you, Tammy, this 4th beast is the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire. Remember, you have Babylon. Then Babylon fell to the Medo-Persian, which is where Cyrus came in. Then Cyrus, or the Medo-Persian Empire, fell to the Greek Empire, Alexander the Great. And then Alexander the Great and his empire fell to the Roman Empire. And so that is what he's seeing here. He's seeing the Roman Empire. But we know that this beast is yet future, because the Roman Empire back then never had 10 kings. There was never 10 kings a part of that old Roman Empire that fell centuries ago. They never had 10 kings. So this Roman Empire is what you and I would refer to as the revived Roman Empire. And so that is something to be mindful of. That, you know, like people are like, oh, it's the revived Roman Empire. Well, why do they say revived Roman Empire? Well, it's because that's what he's describing here, but it's back. It's back. And so this beast is a picture of the revived Roman Empire with 10 kings. But let's keep reading, because we're reading about 10 horns. I keep calling them 10 kings. Why are they 10 kings? Well, we know that they're 10 kings because go to Daniel chapter 7, verse 24. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 24, Daniel 7:24, it says the 10 horns are 10 kings. So we know that these 10 horns, they're just symbols of 10 actual human being kings. So there's 10 kings, a part of this Roman Empire, this revived Roman Empire. So in Daniel chapter 7, verse 8, it says, I was considering the horns, or kings, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. Okay, so here's where you get into this whole idea of what's connected back to in Revelation chapter 12, Revelation 13, Revelation chapter 17. Because in all of those passages, you see about like a beast with like 7 heads and like 7 horns or 10 horns, all these kind of weird things. This is why you need to understand Daniel chapter 7, because in Daniel chapter 7, verse 8, he says, I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one. The little horn is a picture of the Antichrist, just so you know. This little horn is the Antichrist coming up among them, and then it says, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. So you have 10 kings, and it tells you that 3 of them were eliminated. So if you remove 3, now you're down to 7. So now you have 7 kings. But among them was a little horn, the Antichrist. This is where the Antichrist takes the reins, and this doesn't happen until 3.5 years into the tribulation. So remember what I told you guys before? Like during the 7-year period of the tribulation, there are 2 political systems and there are 2 religious systems. The first political system lasts for 3.5 years. The first political system is the 10 kings. The 10 kings are in charge. The 10 kings are ruling. But then during the second 3.5 years, the Antichrist is going to show up, and he's going to eliminate 3 of those kings. Now you're down to 7. And then he's going to take the reins, and he's going to be like, now I'm in charge. So you have 2 political systems, the 10 kings and then the Antichrist. And then you have 2 religious systems. You have, for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, you have the great harlot, which is just false Christendom. You know, like in Revelation chapter 2, where it talks about Thyatira. He's like, you guys are going to go through the great tribulation, right? So that false religious system, which is all over the place in our world today, is going to be ruling for the first 3.5 years. Like everybody's going to be following and going to all these false churches and all this kind of stuff, worshiping demons, all this kind of stuff. But then that's going to take place for the first 3.5 years, that religious system. But then during the second 3.5 years, the Great Tribulation, that's when the Antichrist goes into the temple. He sits down and he's like, I'm God. And he's going to cause everything to worship him. And so those are 2 systems, 2 political systems, one for the first 3.5 years, one for the second 3.5 years. 2 religious systems, one for the first 3.5 years, one for the second 3.5 years. So those are very, very something to, kind of visualize. I feel like that's very digestible as far as what we're diving into. But now we're going to get into this. And so in Daniel chapter 7, verse 8, with all that being said, Daniel chapter 7, verse 8, it says, I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. This man, this Antichrist, is going to be so arrogant, so boastful, so full of himself. He's going to going out to conquer and conquering and to conquer. He's going to be just like all about himself. Like, look at how great I am, right? Like, and I'm just going to be so great. And then he's going to build himself up so much. And then he's going to cause everybody to worship him. But in Daniel chapter 7, verse 9, it says, I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. This right here in Daniel chapter 7, verse 9, seems to be such a parallel of what John saw in Revelation chapter 5. Do you remember what took place in Revelation chapter 5? In Revelation chapter 5, what you see is, you see God the Father sitting on the throne. And then John starts weeping. And he's surrounded. There's 24 elders there. They're all there. And John starts weeping. And then all of a sudden Jesus shows up. And then he goes up to God the Father, and he takes the scroll. That takes place in Revelation chapter 5. Here, in Daniel chapter 7, verse 9, it says, I watched till thrones were put in place. Why are there multiple thrones? Who's sitting on those thrones? I would argue the 24 elders. Very cool. Here we are. We're in the book of Daniel. Kind of cool, huh? I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days were seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth before him. 1,000,000 ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. That's crazy. That's like pretty much what you read about in Revelation chapter 5. But then there's a gap in between verse 10 and 11. So you have the scene, the heavenly scene in verse 10, but then there's a gap between verse 10 and 11. Because they're all there, everybody's all there, but then in verse 11, it fast forward to the future, and it says, I watched then, because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking, I watched till the beast was slain. So you're getting the idea that Daniel's just like kind of like watching a movie. He's like, I'm just keep on watching what he's doing. He's like, oh my goodness, what he's going to do next. He's like, I'm going to keep on watching. And I watched till he was slain. I was watching all the things he was doing. I watched till the beast was slain, and in the body, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. So it fast forwarded all the way to the end for the most part. And it says, as for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. So very, very interesting stuff going on here. Hey, thank you, Krista. Thank you so much. When you go to verse 13, this is where Jesus shows up, and I absolutely love it. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 13, it says, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. So the Son of Man, who is that? Who is that? That is Jesus. Yeah, popcorn, right, Yogi? That's but yeah. So you have this. You have the Son of Man. That's a picture of Jesus Christ. If you read the Gospels, you'll see him refer. That's what Jesus refers to himself many, many times. He's like, I'm the Son of Man, the Son of Man, the Son of Man, the Son of Man. This is where it comes into play in the Old Testament. But it says, I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. He came to the Ancient of Days. What took place in Revelation chapter 5? You have God the Father sitting on the throne, holding a scroll. And then Jesus went up to him and took the scroll from him. What's going on here in Daniel chapter 7? You have God the Father sitting on a throne, and then you see the Son of Man went up to him, went up to the Ancient of Days. And so it's such a good like connection. Like you're seeing that these are very, very close relatives when it comes to Daniel 7 and Revelation chapter 5. Okay. Then it goes on in verse 14, Daniel 7 verse 14, it says, then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. I mean, that's just so good. That's just so good. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 15, moving on though, what you have is, it says, I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. Those great beasts which are four kings which arise out of the earth. Now, the reason why he says that they arise out of the earth is because he's letting you know earth is associated with mankind. This is not a demonic king. This is not a demon king. Good night, Sam. This is not a demonic king. This is these are human beings. These are human kings that are on the earth. And so that's why it says of the earth. And so when it talks about of the sea, that's talking about their Gentile-ness. Of the earth speaks to their humanity. So it says in verse 17, it says, those great beasts which are four kings, human kings, mankind, which arise out of the earth. In verse 18, Daniel 7 verse 18, it says, but the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. I find it remarkable that we are told all the way back in the book of Daniel, it's other places as well, but the saints are going to receive the kingdom and they're going to possess the kingdom. We're going to receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom. That's just so cool. I just love that. That's like, what did we do? to deserve that, you know? It's just crazy. Daniel chapter 7, verse 19. Here's where Daniel says, he's like, I want to know more about this one beast. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 19, Daniel says, then I wish to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured broken pieces and trampled the residue with its feet. And the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn, which came up, before which 3 fell, namely the horn which had eyes and a mouth which spoke pompous words, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. So what he's seeing, he's talking about that fourth beast again. He's like, hey, in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, there's that fourth beast, and at the beginning, there's 10 horns. But then, as time goes on, a little horn rises up, and he subdues 3, so there's down to 7 horns, but the little horn's still there. He's like, I want to know about that. Tell me about that. And so it's really interesting. But you see again that this little horn is pompous. He's very prideful. And if you read Proverbs chapter 6, verse 16, what you'll find is that there's 7 things that God hates, and you should read about it. But the first thing that we learn that God hates is a proud look. And what we learn about this Antichrist is he is very, very prideful. He is a boaster. He's arrogant. He's all about me, rather than being about him. And so it's the opposite. It is the anti. It is the in place of Christ. It is just the exact antithesis of what we should be doing, but that's who he is. Remember in the book of Isaiah, the 5 I wills? He's like, I will do this. I will do this. I will ascend above the heavens. I will be like the Most High. It's not going to happen. He's not going to do it. He's saying, I will do that, but it's not going to happen. But that's his heart. He's like, I am so insanely beautiful. It's kind of like in Zoolander when you know, like, you got like the blue steel thing going on. Oh, it's gorgeous. Oh, Magno. Oh, it's just oh, you know. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh, what is this, a center for ants? It's got to be at least 3 times this size. I got the black lung pop. Okay, so Daniel chapter 7, moving on. Daniel chapter 7, verse 21. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 21, says, I was watching, Daniel's saying, I was watching, and the same horn, the little horn, was making war against the saints and prevailing against them. Now it's important to understand the time period that he's talking about here. So what time period is Daniel talking about here? Daniel is talking about the time period of the tribulation. So he's talking about the time period of the tribulation, mainly the Great Tribulation, and he's like, hey, I see the Antichrist prevailing against the saints. Now, who are the saints? I don't want you to get it twisted. There's different categories of saints. Back in the Old Testament, there was the Old Testament saints. Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Daniel, Zechariah, Isaiah, all those guys, they're in this bucket. They're in a bucket. You can see them. Then you and I, after Jesus, after he ascended, the church was born. You and I are in this bucket with all the church saints. You're in there. I'm in here too. We're all we're in this bucket. We're the church. That's going to go up, that bucket of church saints. But then during this time period that Daniel is seeing here, there's a different bucket of saints. We're all saints, but there's a different bucket of saints. And these are the tribulation saints. These are the ones who get saved during the tribulation. There's going to be people who come to Christ during the tribulation. That's what the 144,000 are. That's their whole purpose. They're there to win people to the Lord during this terrible time on earth. So there's going to be a lot of people who come to Christ during the tribulation, but many of them are going to die. And so the Antichrist is going to prevail against many of them. And so that's what Daniel is writing down here. So it's really, really, really fascinating to see this kind of stuff. Okay, moving on. Daniel chapter 7, verse 21. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 21, it says, I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them until, I'm telling you what, like if you want to do a study, just like a random study, and I've said this before, do a study of the word until. You can learn so much just from like focusing on the word until. Until, for example, in Isaiah chapter 14, like when God is talking about Lucifer, he's like, you were perfect and all these things until there was sin found in your heart. That until is massive. And it goes on, there's other places in the Gospels and stuff like that. Until. Here's one of those untils. It says, Daniel says, I was watching and the same horn was prevailing against the saints until the Ancient of Days came and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High. So he's going to reign for a short time or a period of 3.5 years, because that's when he's thrown to the earth, and that's when he's going to take the reins from the 10 kings, and he's like, I'm going to subdue 3 of the kings, and so now we're down to 7. He's like, you were reigning, you 10 kings were doing a good job, but you weren't doing it good enough. I'm going to subdue the 3. I'm going to take the charge. I'm going to take the reins. Now it's my ship. I'm running this ship. You worship me, is what he's going to be doing here in the future sometime. Moving on, though. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 23, it says, Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on the earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it into pieces. This is where we get the idea that there's going to be a one world system. Thank you, Ashley. There's going to be a global government, if you will, a one world system. This is one of those verses that really paints that picture, because it says here in verse 23, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth. The whole earth. This kingdom, when it rises again, is going to be devouring the whole earth. That's remarkable. And so this is where you get the idea of a one world government, at least one of the places. Okay, so when you move on to verse 24, in Daniel chapter 7, verse 24, it says, the 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. This is where we're, like back in verse 8, it says he plucked them up. Here it says he subdued 3 kings. One way or the other, the idea is you have 10 kings. They're in charge of the earth, or of the system, for the first 3.5 years of the tribulation. Then at the 3.5 year mark, Satan is going to be cast to the earth. He's going to know his time is short. He's going to come up to the 10 kings. He's going to subdue 3 of them. Then there's going to be 7 of them left. And then he's going to be that little horn who is among them. He's going to take the reins from them. He's going to be like, I'm the captain now, right? And so that's what it's going to be like. What's up, brother? What's up, chowder mate? How you doing, mate? Okay, so that's the idea of what's going on here. And so in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, it says, he shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time and times and half a time. So these saints are going to be given into the Antichrist's hand for 3.5 years, namely the Great Tribulation. Remarkable. Okay, so that's Daniel chapter 7. So hopefully you understand that. Now we can go and read Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13, in Revelation chapter 13, verse 1, it says, Then I stood on the sand of the sea. In Revelation 13, verse 1, it says, Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his head a blasphemous name. Now this is where it gets interesting. So if you were able to follow along with the whole Daniel chapter 7 conversation that we just had, now bringing all of that over here and putting it into Revelation 13, verse 1, should hopefully help you make sense of it all. Because in Revelation chapter 13, what John is seeing a beast. Remember what we read in Daniel chapter 7, how he saw the first beast, the lion, then the bear, then the leopard, and then the 4th beast? Well, the 4th beast is what he is seeing coming out of the sea here in Revelation chapter 13. He's seeing that beast. And what he's seeing, though, he's seeing that it has 10 crowns because that's how many kings that there used to be, but it only has 7 heads because it was three of the kings were plucked out or subdued, and so it has 10 crowns, but it only has 7 heads. How are you going to wear 10 crowns on 7 heads? Like, what's that? And so it goes all the way back to what you were talking about, or what we were talking about in Daniel 7. There were the 10 kings for the first 3.5 years, and then after the first 3.5 years, then he kills 3 of them, which leaves 7. And so now there's 7 heads, but they still had the crowns. And so this beast is the beast system, right? So in the first 3.5 years of the tribulation, you have the 10 kings who are running things on the earth for the first 3.5 years. The Antichrist is there, but he's just kind of like hanging back a little bit. And then at the 3.5 year mark, he gets thrown out of heaven. He comes down to the earth. He's ticked off. And then he just starts wreaking havoc. And then he goes up to these 10 kings, subdue, 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 karate chop, judo chop, yeah, right? And he starts doing all these things. And then he takes the reins. And so that's what John is seeing here. So he says in Revelation 13, verse 1, it says, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name." Verse 2, it says, "Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority." Now, the reason why it's interesting that he identifies, he goes in verse 2, he goes leopard, bear to lion. But in the book of Daniel, it's the opposite. It's lion, bear, leopard. And so it's interesting that John is writing the same animals, but he's writing them in reverse order. And so the question is, like, why would John do that? And so many people speculate that it's because John was like looking back in time rather than in front of time, because he was looking back to what was going on back there, to what Daniel saw. And so Daniel was looking into the future, John was looking in the past, and so that's why when Daniel looked this way, it was a lion, bear, and leopard. But then when John looked this way, it was a leopard, bear, and lion. So that's one of the ideas. Could be, maybe, I don't know, just a possibility. Okay. Hello, Ashley. Ashley Webb. Crazy clear on here. Okay, is it weird on, is it that bad? Is it bad on YouTube or on TikTok? Is the audio really bad? I'm sorry. I'll work on that. I'll see if I can, no? Okay. Hello, Megan. Nope. Okay. Nail it like Melly. It's fine. Okay. Hello, Wendy. Autumn, hello. It's good. Hello, Nina. What's up, guys? How you doing? Ashley, hello. Refinery, what's up, man? It's fine here. Very cool. Hello, Yasmin. Not having any audio issues. Very cool. Hello, Jay. Kiki. All right, cool. It's good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. Before we continue, all of these studies are uploaded to YouTube. If you guys are looking for a verse-by-verse Bible study, I would encourage you guys to check it out on YouTube. Studying the Bible is difficult and it's challenging. And so if you're looking for a verse-by-verse Bible study that kind of breaks things down, kind of like what you're watching right here, yeah, thank you, Amber. It's ITZ_sheesh if you want to type it in YouTube, or there's a link up here if you wanted to go subscribe. I would appreciate the support. If you wanted to follow me, that would be awesome. You know, I mean, I don't have any other social medias, so if I get banned here on TikTok, then at least we would have YouTube. And so having both, many people on YouTube actually like YouTube more just because they say it's clear and it's a little bit quieter as far as trying to focus without all the, you know, less trolls. So, you know, pros and cons of both, I suppose, but you at least have options. But if you wanted to subscribe over there, and all the other studies that we've done in the past are there as well. We've done Revelation, Daniel, Ruth, Hebrews, James, John, Acts, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, all the Pauline apostles, and so many more. And it's so much cool. So many cool things have just come from it. And so I'm just being edified. I actually just, I'm going to be getting a new book. I'm going to be reading it probably at the beginning of the year. Hey, thank you, Kiki. Thank you so much. I'm going to be getting a new book by Arnold Fruchtenbaum. He's like one of my go-to guys as far as like trying to learn. And so, it's challenging. It's a lot of reading, but I'm going to be doing that. And so I'm going to be getting that probably here in a month or so. But it's on Genesis. And so I'm going to be learning a lot about Genesis and trying to unpack it more and dive into it more and look at different angles from different people. And, like he'll just be one of the guys that I'll look into, but, it's challenging. And so I'm thankful to be able to do that and to, tell you guys about it. And so thank you for trusting me. But let's go ahead and get back into Revelation chapter 13. Revelation, the Assyrian as the Antichrist. Do you think it's about the Assyrian? Yeah, actually is one of the titles for the Antichrist. The Assyrian, it's in Isaiah many times. I can't. Why can't I remember? I actually forget the question. Hello, Royal. I was missing you on TikTok. Yeah. Yep, I'm here. Welcome. I know Arnold Fruchtenbaum. Yeah, that's right, Bridget. No, he's the man. I really like him. He's very smart, very intelligent. There's some smart people out there. I'm just gleaning a lot from people. Revelation 13, verse 3. In Revelation 13, verse 3, it says, "And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast." Actually, somebody mentioned the Assyrian. That's another reason why I believe that the Antichrist is going to be Gentilian. I'm sticking with it. Gentile, because he's an Assyrian. So, just another drop in the bucket, I suppose. But and it says, "I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded." Now, this could be literal, like literally he actually dies and rises again. Could be. Or it could be an illusion that it's just a perception, like the idea. Like he's a deceiver. We need to remember that, right? And so, John is seeing this in a vision, and he says, "I saw one of his heads as if it had been." We don't know that he actually died. He doesn't say he's dead, but it's mortally wounded. So, whatever he's seeing, like in a vision, you don't know how clear things are. So people are like, does he die? Does he actually rise from the dead? Is he able to really do that kind of stuff during the Great Tribulation? Who knows? We'll like the people on earth will find out. You and I will find out from a different seat. We'll be up in heaven. I believe that, if you are a born again believer. But here, what you see is the Antichrist. He is injured, and this is where he is going to require worship. So in verse 4, Revelation 13, verse 4, it says, "So they worshiped the dragon, who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?'" So these people on earth, everything changed after Lucifer was thrown out of heaven. So Lucifer is thrown out of heaven. He comes down to earth. He's super ticked off. Thank you, Yasmin. He's super mad. And then all of a sudden everything changes, and now there's all kinds of demonic worship. Let's go back to Revelation chapter 9 in our minds, because what happens in Revelation chapter 9? That's where all of the demonic invasions were taking place. There's all kinds of demonic invasions in Revelation chapter 9. And so now here in Revelation 13, we've come to the place where people are now openly worshiping the dragon. So this is straight up demonic stuff going on here. And it says in verse 5, it says, "He was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months. So this dude, here's that point again. He's given authority to continue for 42 months. The 42 months is 3.5 years. That's 3.5. He's given authority to continue for 3.5 years. This is coupled with Revelation chapter 11, where the two witnesses are in front of the temple. They're in front of the temple for 3.5 years. Nobody can go into the temple for the 3.5 years during their testimony. And then after he kills those two witnesses, we see here in Revelation 13, verse 5, that he was given authority to continue for 3.5 years. So you see the 3.5 years and 3.5 years. The two witnesses are there for 3.5 years. They're untouchable. But then after their 3.5 years is up, the beast shows up, he overcomes them, and then he's given 3.5 years to continue. 3.5, 3.5. 2 witnesses, the beast for 3.5 years. So it's really important, Revelation 11, with the 2 witnesses. It really provides a lot of insight as far as where is what in what time and what place during this the book of Revelation. It gives you all the information. It's just rather difficult to really unpack. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But this beast is given authority to continue for 42 months or 3.5 years. So let's move on. Revelation chapter 13. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 6, it says, "Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven." He's gonna be so mad at you. If you are in heaven, which I hope you are, if you are there, he's gonna be so upset with you, and I'm gonna be like, suck it. But in Revelation 13, verse 7, it says, in Revelation 13, verse 7, it says, "It was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation." Now, what's so interesting, I'm so sorry. Revelation 13, this is one of those times where you see him being... You see him having authority over the saints. Again, this is another one of those times where you need to recognize that this is not you. This is not the church. This is over the tribulation saints. These are over all the saints that are being born again during the tribulation. He's going to have authority over those guys. Not the church, not you and I. He's going to have them over the tribulation saints, the people who get born again during the tribulation. I believe you and I will be gone at this point. That's just my opinion. If you believe in a mid-tribulation rapture, that's completely fine. Like, it doesn't change our mission. Our mission is to tell people about Jesus regardless of our situation or our belief on these eschatological kind of conversations. But we still need to edify one another, build one another up, pray for one another, love on one another, and tell people who are lost about Jesus. And so that's the focus. So it's okay if we disagree on that, but that's what I personally believe. Moving on, in Revelation chapter 13, in Revelation 13, verse 8, it says, "All who dwell on earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world." So you know this verse is like so mind-blowing because you and I, our names were written down before the foundation of the world, and he was slain before the foundation of the world. That's a weird concept to really allow our minds to try to grasp. Before the foundation of the world, before there was a world, there was a book. Before there was a world, there was a book. Your name is in that book. Before there was a world, he was slain before the foundation of that world. Whatever the foundation is, whatever that is, he was slain before that, which means Jesus knew what he was going to do, which means he knew that Satan was going to fall, which means that he knew the angels were going to fall with him, a third of them, which means that he knew that Satan was going to deceive Eve, which means that his creation was going to be tainted, which means he knew that he was going to have to jump in after them, and that's what he did. Before the foundation of the world, he knew he was going to be slain. The Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world. Unbelievable concept. But in Revelation 13, verse 9, it says, "If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints." So here in verse 10, it talks about he who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. That's really interesting. So let's go to Revelation chapter 19, verse 21, as talking about being killed with the sword, because what's going on here is that this is a warning to those who follow or who choose to follow the Antichrist. The people who choose to follow the Antichrist at this point in the Great Tribulation, they are going to, it says, "He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity." Meaning they're going to, do not pass go, do not collect $200. They're going to be thrown into lake of fire. And then it says, "He who kills with the sword must also be killed with the sword." It's interesting when you look at Revelation 19, verse 21, because in Revelation chapter 19, verse 21, as far as being, ended with the sword, in Revelation 19:21, it says, "And the rest were killed with the sword, which proceeds from the mouth of him who sat on the horse." Now, we know that sword is not a literal sword, but there could be some kind of a connection there. as far as between Revelation 13:10 and Revelation 19:21, as far as sword and sword and sword and sword. One's literal, one's figurative. Could be some kind of connection there. All right, let's get to Revelation 13:11. In Revelation 13:11, now this is something that is important to really recognize when it comes down to it. In Revelation 13:11, it says, "Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. And he exercised all authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth of those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed." So the idea, the idea of what's going on here is to understand that during this time, it's not just the Antichrist. There are 2. It's a team. There is a duality going on here. There is the Antichrist and there is the false prophet. So they're going around with each other, and what you see is that the Antichrist is healed miraculously, and then when he's healed, that gets everybody's attention on that guy. Not just that, but he also killed the 2 witnesses, so all the people are super fans of the Antichrist. But not only that, now the Antichrist, who's done all of those cool things already, now he's got a sidekick who is able to pull fire down from heaven. And now everybody sees that guy, and now they're like, holy crap, that guy did this guy did that. That guy's telling us to worship that guy. I'm going to listen to that guy because that guy can do those things. And so the world is going to listen to the dude who can pull fire down from heaven, and they're going to be deceived because they're trusting their eyes. They're listening to, they're following their eyes, and that's what's so dangerous about our world that we're living in right now. So many people want to seek a sign. I can't tell you how many, I'm sure you guys have seen it here on TikTok. You just scroll, and there's all these prophetic lives, and people want to experience something. And I need you to be so careful with that type of, if you take that path, because if you seek to experience something, then you're veering off course. It's not about your experiences, because your experiences can be incorrect and they can lead you down the wrong road. You need to seek the word and the understanding and the wisdom of the Bible. This is your compass, not your experience. Because when you experience something, then you feel something. When you feel something, then you're like, I want to chase that feeling and I want to keep going after that. It is not about that. It is not about how you feel. It is about what you know. This is what you know. This is what we need to just, it doesn't say, in Peter when he's talking about it, he's like, build on your faith, your virtue, knowledge, your knowledge, your feelings. No, he doesn't say that. He says, he lists all the other things in 2 Peter. You can go read it, but it's just interesting. Your feelings is something you need to put aside. That's tough. That's a tough pill to swallow, because I'm a human being and I have emotions and I have feelings, right? But we need to be mindful that I can't trust myself. Ooh, you can't trust me. I can't, I need to this. Let God be true and every man a liar, right? If you remember that, and then you're going to be like, well, hold up. I can't take anybody's opinion, and I don't care. I'm going to get in here and I'm going to see what God had to say. I'm going to see what he wrote down, what I need to know, and then I can discern from there and pray for wisdom and understanding, all those things. But the wisdom and understanding begins with fearing the Lord. So there's certain steps under these kind of things, and so it's everybody's at a different stage in their understanding and walk and whatnot. But we need to recognize the potholes that lie ahead. So let's go ahead and keep on reading Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. Revelation chapter 13, verse 13. It says, "He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by the signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived." Now it's interesting. So here you have this, people are being deceived by signs. Now what's interesting is that when Jesus was born, what you see is that before he was born, he he expected his people to recognize who he was because of all of the prophecies foretelling of him. So Jesus relied on prophecy. He didn't just rely on prophecy, he was going to back it up on who he was by proving who he was by doing miracles. But what's interesting about the entire thing is that here in Revelation chapter 13, people throw out the prophecies out the window and they rely on signs alone. If you rely on signs alone, then you're going to be trapped, because think about it. Go back to Egypt. When Aaron and Moses, when Aaron threw down the rod and it turned into a serpent, what did the magicians do right after Aaron did that? They threw down their staffs and they also turned into serpents. And so if you're just there like, a bystander and you have no knowledge about the Bible, you're like, well, they're all kind of cool to me. Like, that's that's amazing, right? Like, that's cool. And like, I want to go follow these guys because they got some cool hats on, right? Like, they're like the robes. But there's so much danger in chasing an experience or chasing signs. And so there's a difference. Prophecy in the Jewish mind is patterns. It's pattern. But in your and I mind, like when we think of prophecy, there's a prediction at some point, and then sometime in the future, there's a fulfillment of that prediction. That's what we think of prophecy. But these people that are on the earth are going to just fully give themselves over to what their eyes tell them. And so what's dangerous about that is that right now, you don't even know if this is the real me. You don't know if this is what my voice sounds like. You don't know if I'm using like a voice changer, if I'm using some kind of AI technology to make myself look like this, which this is not what I would choose if I had that. But you get what I'm saying? Like, there's all kinds of deep fakes, there's all Bluebeam out there, there's all this kind of technology that you don't even know what's real anymore. And so my point here is that these people are going to trust in something like a sign. And it's a deception. It's deception, which is underscoring the idea of the reason why we need to be so engulfed in the Word of God. And so it's just one of those things. Revelation chapter 13, verse 14, it says, "And he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who was wounded by the sword and lived. He was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many who would not worship the image of the beast to be killed." What's interesting, I just made a little TikTok video. It's only like a minute long, but it's really fascinating to like apply this type of stuff in our world today, because what you have today, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was about, it's called AI Jesus. And it's nothing new. It's been out for a couple years, but it's now being accepted into two churches. One of the churches that accepted it was one in Switzerland. So a church in Switzerland is now accepting AI Jesus, which is an app. You can download it right now if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. Don't do it. It's completely demonic. But you have AI Jesus. You can ask it questions. It will answer you. It's kind of like ChatGPT. You ask it anything, but the only difference here is that they put a little image of what they think Jesus looks like, which is completely wrong, because they paint a little picture of him looking very beautiful and like very, like clean cut and all this kind of stuff, long hair. But we understand from the Bible is that he was marred. His visage was marred more than any other man. He didn't look recognizable after we were done with him. That's why when Mary saw him at the tomb, she thought he was the gardener. I mean, Mary knew Jesus, but she didn't recognize Jesus when he was only a couple feet away. Like, why? It's because his face was so disfigured. How come all the people on it doesn't matter. My point here is that we're living in a time where, technology is just running rampant. And so AI Jesus is a way of, deceiving many people. And so many people believe that this image could be connected to AI in some kind of capacity, which is a very high probability, if you ask me. I don't know beyond a shadow of a doubt, but this image, what is it? Elon Musk has said before, he's like, when we're working with this kind of technology, we are summoning demons. Do you think that that was just, satire, or do you think he was actually being very real when he said that type of stuff? I think these people who are that high up in the billionaire club, I think these guys are dabbling in some pretty demonic type of things, and it's just, it's nothing new. Like, I mean, if you don't think that that stuff is happening, then you're not catching up, or you're not keeping up, because there's nothing new under the sun. This stuff has been going on since the beginning. And so it's really interesting. You read the Old Testament and there's all kinds of pagan demon worship going on back there. I mean, it's nothing new. And so if for us to say it out loud today, it's almost like everybody thinks you're ridiculous when you say it, but you're like, why would you think it would, why do you think it wouldn't happen today? Like, it was happening back then, it's happening today, it's going to happen in the future. I mean, it's just crazy. Anyways, this image that is that's going to be placed in the temple, it seems, is what we believe to be the abomination of desolation. So this abomination of desolation that is spoken of by Daniel the prophet, which is in Matthew 24:15, it's really interesting because when you go back to the book of Daniel, what you find is that there's a guy named Antiochus Epiphanes. So Antiochus Epiphanes is a type or a model of the Antichrist. Why? Because Antiochus Epiphanes, he hated the Jews, he persecuted the Jews, and he also went into the temple and he built a statue of Zeus in the holy place, in the Holy of Holies. So he built an image in the Holy of Holy place, just like the Antichrist is going to do during the Great Tribulation. So that is why Jesus in Matthew 24 says, hey guys, when you see the abomination of desolation, which is spoken of by Daniel the prophet. So he's pointing you and I back to Daniel. He's saying, go check out Daniel, go check him out, go see what he wrote down and pay attention to him. So Jesus himself authenticates Daniel. And so just like Antiochus Epiphanes built an image in the holy place, sometime in the future, the Antichrist will also put an image in the temple. The image happened back then. It was a foreshadow of something to happen in the future. And so that is something to pay attention to. It is a model. You see that? Pay attention to it. It's going to happen again. Pattern, 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 pattern. Okay, so in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, Revelation chapter 13, verse 15. Revelation chapter 13, verse 15, it says, he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many who would not worship the image of the beast be killed. So the Antichrist is going to rule for 3.5 years, but we talked about this last time, and I think it's really interesting. If you read Daniel chapter 12, like the last 2 or 3 verses of Daniel chapter 12, what you'll find is that the image is going to be up for 30 days longer. So the Antichrist is going to reign for 3.5 years, but the image is going to stay up for 3.5 years plus 30 days longer. And I think that's so interesting. And I'm just like, well, why in the world would the image be allowed to stay up for 30 days longer? And I don't know why. I haven't really tried finding an answer to it yet. Keeping up with all these numbers and 1,260 days, 1,290 days, 1,245, like all these numbers, it just makes your head swim. And that's why it's you feel overwhelmed at times, and you're just like, I can't. And you're like, your brain, you're just like, oh my goodness, I forgot how to walk, because there's so many things to try to keep up with here. You just forget the little things, but it's so tough. And so that's why I think it's so interesting about the Bible, because it's so cool. You're not supposed to know it all, and I'm not supposed to know it all either. I missed it. What image? The image in Revelation 13, verse 15. This image is going to be built or erected in the temple. But what I was talking about is the image is going to stay there longer. And so we can go check it out. Let's go to Daniel chapter 12, just so you guys can see it. Daniel chapter 12, verse 11. In Daniel chapter 12, verse 11, it says, and from that time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days. So this abomination of desolation, referring to the image that we're talking about here, seems to be allowed to remain for 1,290 days. But we know the Antichrist is only going to reign for 42 months. He was given authority for 42 months. So if the Antichrist is given authority for 42 months, but the abomination of desolation, which is the image, is allowed to stand up for 1,290 days, well, that's 30 days longer than the Antichrist is allowed to reign. So how in the world, like why in the world, and how in the world, and what in the world, and what kind of world, and what? I have questions, is all I'm saying. I have questions and I don't have answers, so it's just fascinating to me. But what I was saying is about the Bible is that's what I think is so cool about it, is like you're not supposed to know everything. Like you can't know everything. And so that's why it's important you just keep pouring yourself into it, and the more you pour yourself into it, the more it's going to pour into you. And so that's a beautiful thing, because then you're going to get all let up about it. And then you're going to want to tell somebody about Jesus. And then you're going to want to just keep telling people about Jesus. And then you want to show people about what you learned and like how cool this is. And like, I know there's people in here, like, I just can't wait to tell people about what I learned. And I'm like, I get pumped up about that kind of stuff. And that encourages me. And, we're here for a short time. And so the like, what a privilege to be able to tell people about, Jesus and how cool he is. Like, I mean, we're talking about Jesus right now. Like, that's what we're doing here. We're talking about Jesus. When we turn these pages, we are flipping through the scriptures. We are searching the scriptures. I mean, how wonderful is that? You can't, like, I mean, you just, like, I mean, even though I'm completely exhausted after these lives, I walk away. Thank you, Margie. I walk away and I'm just like lifted up. Like, I just feel, I love it. I absolutely love it. And it's such a joy and it's so cool. Even though we're reading about some pretty crazy things here. Daniel 12:11, is that the 30 minutes of silence in heaven? No, Julie. That what you referenced there is in Revelation chapter 8, verse 1. What I'm talking about is there's 30 days where the image is allowed to stay in the temple, it seems, for 30 days longer, not 30 minutes, 30 days longer than the Antichrist is allowed to have authority, which I think is very interesting. I just think it's interesting. Those were my questions. I was hoping you had an answer. Nope, sorry, I'm terrible. The more I study, the more questions I have. I know, right, Bridget? It's just like, Okay, so Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. Moving on in Revelation chapter 13, verse 16, it says, he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, and that no one may buy or sell except one who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. Okay, so we can glean a lot of information from this right here. Now, obviously, the number 6, it's associated with man. Man was created on the 6th day. We all know that, right? But what is interesting is that this mark of the beast is not going to come out until the Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation. It's not going to come out during the first day one of the tribulation. No, it's going to come out during after the first 3.5 years. So there's going to be 3.5 years of tribulation. And then after that first 3.5 years, the Antichrist is going to be thrown down to the earth. He's going to come down to the earth all mad. He's going to go to those 10 kings. He's going to subdue 3 of them. He's going to be that little horn. He's going to grab the reins. He's like, I'm the captain now. And now he's like, I'm the one doing everything. He's going to cause everybody to worship him. And the way he's going to cause everybody to worship him is by telling everybody, you get a mark. And if you don't get a mark, then you are going to be ended and you won't be able to buy or sell. And so this is what he's doing. And so this kind of paves way into Revelation chapter 14. And so we'll stop right there for a second, because I want you guys to know this is what we do at every chapter break, even though I felt like I was kind of on a roll there. But terrible timing. But if you guys are new here, thank you for being here. My name is Ryan. We're just going through the Bible book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. Hey, 100,000. Very cool, guys. Thank you so much. You don't have to do that. I mean, thank you for tapping the screen. It's not, I'd rather you guys listen. I think it's really cool when it's just really quiet in here, because I know people are listening. But all of these are uploaded to YouTube. There's a YouTube link up here in my TikTok profile if you want to go check it out. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. for that gift. That's very kind. Thank you. But if you're looking for a verse by verse Bible study, I would encourage you to check us out. We go through it verse by verse, book by book, chapter by chapter. We've gone through like 25 books in the Bible, and they're all uploaded to YouTube, and they're all so good. And I mean, if you watch them in chronological order, which was Revelation was the very first book we did, and now we're doing it again a year and a half later, my understanding and my growth and journey with you guys has just grown so much, and it's just such a neat thing. And so like every time I'm around my in real life friends, I just want to talk about it, but then I like have to like minimize it because I don't want to be like, because nobody's like, like everybody's interested, but there's like, there's no, and so I'm just like, well, I'm gonna go tell my TikTok friends, like just, and so so I'm glad you guys are willing to listen. So it's just funny. But let's go. Anyways, all of this is up. If you're looking for a verse by verse Bible study, there's the YouTube link up there. If you wanted to go subscribe over there or follow me over there, that would be great. I would love that. Cause I don't have any other social media. I just have TikTok and YouTube. So, let's go ahead. I'm right there with you. Yeah.